Hello everyone. I'm here to talk to you about one topic which has been in some discussion recently, partly in the light of the International Women's Day, which has been talked about. Now, whenever we talk about Women's Day, whenever we talk about breaking gender stereotypes, often it is presented as if the issue is a problem of individuals' mindset only. और if I was to put it in Hindi, it's often said कि ये लोगों की सोच का problem है. But issues related to women empowerment, issues related to discrimination against women or gender discrimination are not merely a mindset problem. In fact, many of these problems exist and persist because of invisible hurdles, which are political hurdles, which are economic hurdles, and which are social hurdles as well. And it is the persistence of discrimination often is because of these some visible struggles or some visible hurdles, but a large number of invisible hurdles as well. And today I'm here to talk to you about one such invisible hurdle which is often ignored in discussion on public policy also, but something which must receive more attention. Also, it is something which is pertinent or useful for the UPSC examination perspective as well. Now, it is here to talk to you about, there's often, with respect to women, there is one sort of a hurdle which you may or may not have noticed, and that is a certain form of hurdle which is of what? Which is the burden of household work. And this is a hurdle because women often have to compete with men, often on same terms, and we say that this is a meritocracy. We often say that merit must be rewarded, but it is women who primarily have to deal with household work, and within household work also they have to deal with works related to primarily childcare. Now, this household work is often an invisible hurdle in the sense that this hurdle is often not taken into account while framing public policies or their implementation as well. And even in popular discourse, the invisible hurdle, this kind of an invisible hurdle which surrounds women's issues is often ignored. Women are often portrayed as somebody who's going to take care of household work as well as paid work as well. The invisible household work is neither accounted for, neither is paid for, neither is often very strongly recognized. And it is this household work, including primarily the work of childcare, which creates obstacles in the path of women in terms of employment in the paid sector. And to that extent, the question that arises is that how is women employment related to the invisible hurdles that they often face on a day-to-day basis. And this is what we're going to currently discuss in this particular video. Now, before I go there, why am I taking this topic is because this has been partly in discussion in your newspapers. You had this newspaper article, right, which came in the Hindu recently on the occasion of International Women's Day, and that was about working women too with a dream of good childcare. Women are often equated with motherhood and with childcare, and to that extent, this article talks about working women and the challenges that working women have to deal with the while providing childcare also to the young. Now, it's a good article, I would say, and you should go ahead and read this article. But for now, we're going to take a closer look into the details of this article or into the details of this issue as well. And what I'm going to also try to show it to you that before you read any article in newspapers or while reading newspapers, it's essentially important that you actually keep in mind why this topic is important. While you read an article in newspaper, it's essentially important to keep in mind why is a topic important. Now, essay topics, for example, there was the essay topic in your mains examination of 2021. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Now, there's a topic directly related to the issue of women or gender, and also the cradle here refers to what? Childcare. And the hand that rocks the cradle here refers to the women and women who are involved in childcare as well. So this is a topic directly or indirectly related to gender. There was another essay topic. This was in 2016, and this was the essay topic in the mains examination paper that if development is not engendered, it is endangered. Now, when this topic came, it went as a partly as a bouncer to many of the students because of the language used in the topic. But this issue, this essay topic relates to the issue of women's employment. And there have been many essay topics which relate to women and women related issues. Apart from this, in your GS paper 2 also, in GS paper 1, in the social issues section, this topic of women issues or gender issues is extremely important. Paper 1, social issues, this topic is extremely important. Issues related to gender and women are extremely important. Even in GS paper 2, a question can come. Needless to say, thus we often say, and there's a popular quote that I often say in the classes, कि if you're preparing for UPSC, you cannot ignore issues related to women, because issues related to women often give some 200 to 250 marks of questions every year. And that is why when anything comes related to gender issues, you should study them closely. Now, if you know the importance of topic, only then I say that you will be in a position to effectively channelize energy in terms of reading a topic also, or making its notes as well. Now, in this topic, when you look that why is this, what is the issue? The issue that we are dealing here with is, what are the challenges that working women face, and particularly in the informal sector? Now, when you see women, a large number of women are today employed in the informal sector. For example, where? In the construction sector also. So there is a large number of working women, and these working women are primarily employed where? In the informal sector. And what are the challenges these working women face in the informal sector? That is something that we are interested to study here. That women's employment, and who will bear the burden of childcare, with respect to children of these women who are employed in the informal workforce. What happens to the child who takes care of the young in the 0 to 6 year age group if women are going out to work in the paid sector? Whose responsibility is it to actually ensure a safe upbringing for the 0 to 6 year age group? Is it primarily or only of the women, or is it something where the state also has to play an active role? That is what is the issue. Now, according to the ILO surveys or the International Labour Organization surveys, the invisible hurdle of taking care of the child or of the young prevents women from actively engaging in the workforce. And to that extent, this reflects in the fact that the labour force participation rate of women is actually very low, and we'll come to that point. But 95% of India's women, for example, are engaged where? Are engaged in the informal workforce, and these informal workforce women do not have access to any social security schemes. They do not get any maternity leaves. They do not get any maternity leaves or compensation or paid leaves of that sort. So the fact that 95% of employment today anyways is in the informal sector, and the same applies to women. Women are the ones who suffer from the lack of access to these social security schemes, especially while they are in their reproductive age group. And that's one constraint. Another ILO study, as I told you, pointed out that a lack of access to quality childcare services forces women workers to leave the labor force while they're performing the activities of raising the young. So when we say that let's make this world a more equal place for women, but you do not provide childcare services for children in the 0 to 6 year age group, then you are not creating an equal field for women and men to compete. In fact, women are dealing with the invisible hurdle or the burden of taking care of childcare while also competing with men in the workforce. So that's something that obviously and strongly needs to be talked about and understood as a major issue before it can actually be addressed also. So this is one thing. Another key issue, and as this cartoon depicts, it is the woman who is expected to perform the burden of paid work also and unpaid work also. She is often, it won't be an exaggeration to say that she is often involved in what we call as a double burden of work or a double shift as well, where they're involved in both paid and unpaid work. Right? Now, it is in this context that the social security schemes, as I told you, like the Maternity Benefit Act, which is currently in operation, which gives 26 weeks of paid leave. This 26 weeks of paid leave actually goes to whom? Women in the formal sector of the workforce. And women in formal sector are less than 5% of the total women in the workforce. So this 26 weeks of paid leaves, etc., is available only to a small minority of women in the workforce, and that's a persistent issue nonetheless. Now, if you look, and also what this summarizes, that the key issue is this, that India has paid less attention to the concerns around childcare and supporting childcare while ensuring women's equal right to work in the workplace, especially for women in the informal sector. So if this context is something which is clear, then we can move towards, and as I always say, whenever you read an article, it's important to first understand what is the issue, what is the key issue, some major data around it, and what is the way ahead. So if you have to read any good article or prepare your own notes on any topic, it's important to understand what is the issue, what is the key data, and what is the way ahead. What is the issue, what is the key data, and what is the way ahead. So these are the three things that we have to keep in mind. Now I've told you broadly what is the issue. Now we'll go to data and what is the way ahead. Because if you don't categorize the information into these such categories, you'll always be lost as to what all do you need to focus on. These three areas you need to focus on. When you look at the data, one of the things you will find that India's labor force, female labor force participation rate has actually dropped over time. In 2005, the female labor force participation rate in India was 32%, which has dropped now to 21%. And you often find that ये question पूछा जाता है that why in India the female labor force participation rate has dropped. If you compare with other BRICS countries, if you compare with Bangladesh, if you compare with Sri Lanka, less number of women in India are actively looking for work as compared to a Bangladesh, a Sri Lanka, a BRICS, other countries, which means less and less number of women are actively looking for employment. The question is why? Part of the reason is this, that women's the invisible burden of household care, primarily of childcare, something goes on primarily on women. Neither the state takes any active role in terms of taking care of children in the 0 to 6 year age group, and that creates invisible hurdles that women find it difficult to overcome in terms of participation in the workforce. So if you look at this data, this is what is there that I've told you. That women's participation in the female labor in the labor force in India is lower than other BRICS countries also and other South Asian countries like Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Bangladesh, for example, has moved almost towards 45 to 50% female labor force participation rate. In fact, women contribute to a large extent in the success of the garment factories and the garment sector of Bangladesh. But that's something which is missing in case of India at the moment. The final question that arises then is, what is the way forward? And when we talk about the way forward, what is to be understood is that please understand that in civil services preparing for the examination, we often do not say, it is the responsibility of the individual, or it is only that men within the household must take part in childcare. It's a common discussion, right? If you ask your friends as to, okay, why should women only raise children? Men must also equally contribute in household work. Well, that is also a partial explanation at best. Apart from men taking responsibility within the household, it is also important that the state creates policies and implements policies which make it possible for the care of the young to be taken care or to be ensured in a manner that women's participation in the labor force is not compromised. So apart from individual level responsibility or bringing a change in the mindset of men within household, there's also a need for the state to actively play a catalyst role for enabling women's participation in the labor force. And to that extent, when we talk about the way forward, we often say that to increase women's participation in the labor force, it is important that there must be creche at the workplace, or a creche at the workplace created where women can leave their children at the workplace at a creche or at a Anganwadi, and these can be workplace creches. So if a woman is going to work at a construction site where a large number of women are working, then these construction sector workers, women, can leave their children at the creche where the children are taken care of in a sort of a play school, and the women can pick up the children while going out from the shift. So that's a workplace kind of a creche. The other thing which has also been talked about is having community creches, or which is called as again community creches, in the sense that in areas or in low income households or in urban areas where a large number of workers live, there must be daycare centers where women can leave their children while going to work and pick them up after coming back to work, so that they don't have to worry that what happens to their children while they're away at work. So there is a need for the state to actively support the creation of such creches at the workplace as well as at the community center. Mind you, in the Maternity Benefit Act, it is mandatory that such creches have to be created, but the Maternity Benefit Act applies only to the formal sector. And we need to extend it to the informal sector as well. There is a need to also extend maternity benefits. There's a need to also extend the conditional cash transfer schemes, that the government has for maternity benefits to the pregnant and lactating mother, in the sense that the pregnant mother during pregnancy and up to 6 months after delivery, when the child is extremely young and is completely dependent on mother for nutrition and survival, it is important that the state has strong cash transfer schemes in place to compensate women for the loss of income they suffer while giving birth and taking care of the young. Please understand, when women give birth to the young, they are creating and nourishing the future workforce of the country. And to that extent, it is the state's responsibility to actually play an effective role in ensuring their upbringing as well. And last but definitely not the least, the state also has a role to play in terms of expanding the coverage of for children in the 0 to 3 year age group within Anganwadis, which are a part of the Integrated Child Development Services, or the ICDS as well. So these are some of the things that need to be taken in mind, and in an answer you have to point out that these are the 3 effective measures which can be actually implemented. So if this context is clear, let me run you through the important points within the presentation as well. But as I always say, that before you actually explain something, it's important that you are able to arrive at the major points on your own. So the 3 points, as I say, there are 3 important ways as a way forward that you can write in your answer, and they are extending the benefit of the ICDS scheme to the 0 to 3 year age group, revitalizing the national creche scheme, and improving the maternity benefits to pregnant and lactating women. And to that extent, when you look at extending the coverage under ICDS, currently the ICDS earlier, before the new education policy, ICDS covered 6 to 14 year age group. Now, with the new education policy, it now covers even the 3 to 6 year age group. But what about the 0 to 3 year age group children? A suggestion has been made that children must be provided coverage under the ICDS, and children must be made a part of Anganwadi services under ICDS even in the 0 to 3 year age group. So the ICDS must expand its coverage. That's point number 1. Secondly, within the ICDS also, children often go to these Anganwadis for a duration of only 3 hours or 4 hours in a day. Now what happens is that a woman who's going to the workplace goes for a 6 hour or 8 hour shift. Now, so the duration for which the Anganwadis are active during the day is very small, 0 to 3. Or is roughly around 3 hours per day. So it's a need. So the need is not just to expand the coverage to 0 to 3 year age group also, but also make sure that the Anganwadis remain open for 6 hours per day, not just 3 hours per day. And to that extent, that's an important suggestion which has been made to expand the coverage under the ICDS, is that they able to ensure that women are able to enter into the workforce at an early stage after delivery. It is important that the limitations of ICDS are addressed. First, the children in the 0 to 3 year age group or under the age of 3 must also be included within the ICDS. And secondly, while the ICDS only functions for only few hours a day, this shortcoming needs to be addressed. So both these shortcomings are the ones which actually need to be addressed at this point of time. Now, for addressing these shortcomings, however, one of the things which is required is that the government needs to allocate definitely more funds for the ICDS program. And while allocating more funds for the ICDS program, it needs to keep in mind that the manpower also in ICDS or Anganwadis has to be adequately trained, adequately paid, so that they do not suffer from resource crunch or manpower crunch. Now, there is a Madhubani painting of an ICDS worker which was created by one of the children who studied in the Anganwadis, and this depiction of Anganwadi worker who is also a woman is that of a woman who's being portrayed providing immunization services, also nutrition, also take home ration, also helping in education of the young child also. So she is a tremendously overworked lady with a lot of hands, but at the same point of time is one who's poorly paid. And so there is a need to even expand the coverage under ICDS, but also ensure that the ICDS are properly staffed and manned in terms of having coverage, also has adequate number of has an adequately trained and equipped workforce as well. So allowing mothers time for paid work is a potential benefit that will come if the ICDS coverage is expanded. Also it will extend the possibility of women's active participation in the workforce. For this, however, what we need is more investment in the infrastructure of ICDS, including training a large number of ICDS or Anganwadi workers. Now, also as I said, that expanding the network of creche and of public creches and worksite creches is important if we don't want to have a situation like this where a woman is working at the worksite, leaving her child unattended at the worksite in a situation where the childcare is also compromised. And so it is in this context, worksite creches or public community creches need to be built so that an inclusive workforce approach is adopted and women's participation in the workforce is also enabled. And public creches can be operated at worksite clusters such as near industrial areas or markets. And this is, for example, the image from one of the Balwadis or Anganwadis operated by Balwadis operated by Seva at the Self-Employed Women Association at some of these worksite creches. And where the focus occurs when work occurs at a single site, such as a construction worker site, where a large number of women are employed, or at a garment factory, there can be a creche adjoining the garment factory so that the woman can go during the break and attend to her child. So having worksite creches improves women's participation in the workforce also, and the construction sector is a case in the point. Last but not the least, expanding maternity benefit coverage for women. The government has the National Food Security Act, under which women have maximum coverage of 6,000 rupees as a conditional cash transfer scheme. Which they can be entitled, or which they will be entitled to. And for this, the government has launched the Pradhan Mantri Matritva Vandana Yojana. However, under this scheme, even though that the scheme says that it will get a coverage up to 6,000 rupees, the detailed provisions of the scheme, if you go into, they say that the Matritva Vandana Yojana says that the maximum benefit given to a woman, pregnant and lactating women, would be 5,000 rupees up till 6 months. A lump sum amount of 5,000 rupees divided into portions given to her up till 6 months after childbirth. But this benefit will be given only for one child, and this benefit will extend only for one child. So clearly there is a need to extend these kind of benefits, to not limit these kind of benefits only to one child, perhaps at least extend it minimally to at least 2 children, and more importantly expand that coverage to at least a minimum of 6,000, which was said in the National Food Security Act. And currently with inflation, there is a need to further increase this amount even up till 9,000 is what has been suggested. So there is a clear need which has been felt to increase the coverage under the Matritva Vandana Yojana, which is currently at 5,000 rupees, and to increase this amount because this amount is clearly inadequate. Because please understand, for the first 6 months after childbirth, the woman cannot easily return to the workplace. What that means is that the woman is suffering income loss while taking care of the young, and also she would require additional financial support to take care of the health and the nutritional needs of the young. So this amount can be definitely increased if under the cash transfer schemes, and that is also a way forward which has been suggested, that the cash transfer scheme under the Matritva Yojana is insufficient, and thus it can be increased up till at least 6 to 9,000 and extend the coverage at least to 2 children. And extend the coverage at least to 2 children is the basic idea. So that is something that you can keep in mind. Now I hope that this is something which makes sense, and in conclusion one can effectively say that one of the reasons why gender inequality persists is because many of these structural problems, these invisible hurdles, remain unaddressed. If they are addressed, then only we will see a transformation. Making merely movies about bringing mindset change, or maybe merely just saying that taking care of the young is the responsibility of only the woman or only the family, is an insufficient explanation. Taking care of the young, who are the future workforce of the country, who are the future economic drivers of this country, is also the responsibility not just of the woman or the individual or the household, but also of the state. And to that extent, there is a need to understand this basic structural aspect, that the lack of affordable and quality childcare services and maternity benefits creates an invisible hurdle for women's participation in the workforce. That's point number one. The secondly, often individuals and families are left on themselves to find a resolution to this tension of a working mother, putting women, girls and children often at a gross disadvantage. Because believe it or not, it is still considered that it is the women's responsibility or primary responsibility to take care of the young at the household level. And it is important that the state takes an active role and responsibility in this regard and not leave women alone in fending off or in dealing with this burden of, or with this task of childcare. And thirdly, it is imperative that we consider affordable and quality childcare infrastructure as an employment linked benefit and as a public good. It is important that at the workplace also structural changes are made so that women feel welcome at the workplace, so that women have crutches at the workplace, so that women can do paid work also and be involved in childcare also. So workplace design needs to be inclusive or gender sensitive. If we need to make more gender sensitive employment policies, we also need to have more gender sensitive employment places or workplace sites as well, and only then a structural transformation can be brought. So what I just want to conclude on saying is that whenever you lead a topic, you should know its importance, you should know the what, why and what is the way forward. You should have a broad understanding of the key data, and that is what you should try to extract from any good newspaper article like this article which came in the Hindu. And I hope that this makes sense. Also, you can download the PDF from the link below. Thank you.